Hey there! Let's talk about what I learned in June. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Factfulness. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's by Hans Rosling and his family. It's a statistician and doctor, and he's actually Swedish. So he's very well known in the Swedish analytics circles because he does a lot of presentations of fantastic visualization. He talks about the changes in the world, the direction that we're going in. For example, like how many less diseases we have, how many more educated people we have, and generally he was fighting for people to not perceive the world in a biased way, correctly understand that the world is not as dramatic as it seems because of the media. The book is amazing. I definitely recommend to read it, or at least watch his TED Talks. They both have really good content, but also show a great example of how you can use visualization techniques to engage your audience. So if you're into data analysis and visualization, I definitely recommend that. And I'll probably make a separate video on the Factfulness book just because there are so many fantastic gems there, so many amazing quotes, and so many things that are super relevant to a data analyst at work. One of the quotes that I really liked is the following: "This is data as you have never known it. This is data as therapy. It is understanding as a source of mental peace, because the world is not dramatic as it seems. Factfulness, like a healthy diet and regular exercise, can and should be a part of your daily life. Start to practice it, and you'll be able to replace your overdramatic worldview with a worldview based on facts. You will be able to get the world right without learning it by heart. You will make better decisions, stay alert to real dangers and possibilities, and avoid being constantly stressed about the wrong things." Really, really good. Definitely recommend. 5 out of 5. I will probably read it again someday as well. Let's go to the next one. Next thing is a very interesting book that I learned about from a friend who learned about it from another friend whose girlfriends just found it on some second-hand market of books, and it's called Unflattening by Nick Sousanis. It's visual storytelling from the perspective of a one-dimensional living creature. So if you imagine like a dot that lives in one-dimensional world, of course this dot is incapable of comprehend the two-dimensional space or three-dimensional space of like a square or a cube. And through this a little weird but very engaging visual storytelling, Nick Sousanis talks about the value of opening your mind to the possibilities of another dimension available there, and how learning new things can give you a great skill of understanding the world and can feed your creativity. And definitely it's not probably like a mandatory read for learning, but I found it very inspiring, and I like how he repurposed some of the physics concepts or mathematics concepts. He talks through them with the emphasis on this like storyline of opening up to a new dimension of learning or a new dimension of the world. Probably this is not a fantastic explanation, but the book is just very, very beautiful, and definitely recommend it if you like comic books and want to get inspired by it. And also I think everyone can derive their own messages through that book, which is also pretty great. Another thing that I've done this month is I've done a self-coaching course by a Russian like productivity brand called 365 Done. I have some notebooks from them where like they ask questions about yourself, or you can do planning, which I talked about in one of the previous videos. And this course was aimed at using different coaching techniques in understanding what your goals are, priorities are, values are, to helping you understand how you can reach those goals and plan out your path towards those goals. Usually a coach would do that for you. They would ask you the right questions, suggest you different techniques or methods on how to break down your goals and values and everything and so on. And in this case, since it's a self-coaching course, there was just one coach and there were like maybe 20-30 people in the course. We could pair up and talk about our goals and challenges through this course. For example, a big challenge for me is to manage my time because I have so many things that I want to do. And it's actually not about managing my time, it's more about managing my priorities and sticking to my priorities and just discarding everything else that's not a priority. I have a hard time doing that because I like to be nice and help other people, or I also want to procrastinate and do nothing and lay on the couch occasionally. That was my goal for this self-coaching course, and they've suggested a few instruments that you can use to define your goals first of all, and also kind of outline a plan towards those goals. Of course, they talk about like very known ones, for example, a smarter goal setting. For example, in your performance development dialogues at work, you would want to define your goals in the SMART or SMARTER framework, where the goal should be specific, measurable, achievable, result-oriented, time-bounded, and then there's E, which is ethical, and R, recorded. The last two are not always used, but I mean, it's always great when your goal is ethical and recorded. So when I try to write down my goals and plans, I try to adhere to this strategy, for example, and generally people prefer if you do that also at work. They also talked about things that I didn't know before, which is the wheel of balance, or like life wheel of balance, I guess. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, so I can't attribute it to the right person. I've seen a lot of those iterations on the internet. Pretty much it looks like a wheel of different areas of your life that are important to you. In my example, like here I'm showing just a short and smaller example of what I really have. You can add here like work, leisure, relationships, social activities, health, sports, and other areas that are important to you. Then you need to define for each area what does a 10 mean and what does a 0 mean. So what is the ideal situation for this area? So maybe for sports, the ideal situation is you being able to run a marathon and training 4 or 5 days a week. And then based on where you're currently at, you define like from 0 to 10 the score for this area, and based on which areas have the least score and the most priority and importance to you, to your quality of life, you'll be able to define what you need to work on. I think this exercise is in line with like a lot of reflection exercises when you talk about your values, what's important to you, when you like write it down and answer questions about those things. And I really like to do those, so I really like doing this wheel of balance. I'm not sure it's like super valuable and applicable in general, but it's kind of good to have a different instrument to do reflections on your life situation. And then they talked about a GROW framework, which is a framework of achieving your goals. GROW stands for goals, reality, opportunities, and what to do, so specific steps. So goals, we already know how to define goals by SMARTER or whatever you need to do there. Then reality is you answering questions about like where you're currently at on the path towards achieving your goals. So like if you want to run a marathon, where you're currently at. Reality is that I can run maybe 2 kilometers without my heart rate going up to like 170, and then I need to rest. Opportunity is, for example, working from home and having time to run during lunch or in the morning, so I can try to define that as my opportunity when I can do certain things. Or maybe my opportunity would be to, I don't know, get a gym card and do cardio that's not running there to improve my cardiovascular health. So in this opportunity area, you would answer questions about what are the things that you could do. And then in the last W letter, what to do, you would outline the specific steps. So for me, the specific step could be, I don't know, every morning I go out for a 5-10 minute run just to like get used to running again. Not sure I would do that, but in general, just for an example. Asking what are the specific steps you can do right now, who could help you with those steps, whose support you might want, or who might be your accountability partner or something like that, and how are you feeling about this area. This is like a super brief explanation of those things. I thought it's pretty interesting to use those instruments sometimes for your life, but I think it's important to remember that none of those things really matter as long as you don't do actions. Like, I could run a YouTube channel without defining my smarter goals, without adhering to the growth framework, without any of the management and any of the fancy coaching terms, because it's all about your motivation. If you're struggling in the one area, it could help you to take a step back and reflect on why you're struggling, but it won't solve the problem for you. So the intrinsic motivation and drive is still more important, and none of these tools on their own would do anything for you. The last thing that I've been learning this month is I've been also listening to a book called Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. So The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel is a fairly short book, maybe like 5-6 hours. It talks more not about like how to save money or how to invest money, but what drives our decisions in investing or not investing, or what drives our decisions in investing or not investing or saving money in a certain way. Also very interesting. Some of it is just like common sense things that you don't think about enough. I liked a few quotes from there. For example, there are a million ways to get wealthy and plenty of books on how to do so, but there is only one way to stay wealthy, some combination of frugality and paranoia. And that's the topic we don't discuss enough. I totally agree with that. Like, there are so many courses on how to invest your money, how to do this certain strategy, how to save money for that or for that or for that. And none of them talk about like how you don't lose your money and how you change your behavior or your lifestyle that you're used to keep the money that you're earning. Another great quote is like, getting money and keeping money are two different skills. Getting money requires taking risks, being optimistic and putting yourself out there, but keeping money requires the opposite of taking risk. It requires humility and fear that what you've made can be taken away from you just as fast. Fairly common sense, but also I don't think I think about it enough. There are two really great quotes as well, or areas that Morgan talks about in this book, is what is the intrinsic value of money and how money affects happiness. We always talk about how money can affect your happiness levels or the fact that money can't buy your happiness, but in fact, I think this is something that I started to understand in the last maybe year or so, and I don't know, maybe I'm late with that, but I still feel like a lot of people don't reflect on this area, is that the money can sort of buy you happiness, but not probably in the way that you think. Morgan here references another book by, I think, Arthur Campbell. I'm not really sure. I'll write it somewhere down. They did a research in 1981 in the book that's called The Sense of Well-Being in America, and they found the most powerful common denominator of happiness. So they say that having a strong sense of controlling one's life is a more dependable predictor of positive feelings of well-being than any of the objective conditions of life we have considered. So more than your salary, more than the size of your house, more than the prestige of your job, control over doing what you want, when you want, with people you want to, is the broadest lifestyle variable that makes people happy. This is so true. And I think working from home kind of opened up this area for me, because I had much more control of what I'm doing, when I'm doing, with whom I'm doing that. Like, people started to only be in the part of the screen. I was not exposed to a lot of people out, like in public transport or at work, just mingling next to the coffee. Freed up a lot of energy for me that I was spending on socializing, that I could pour into creativity and coming up with various ideas of things that I want to do. So, can't understate the value of this factor. Coming out of this statement, statement about the fact that we become increasingly richer, so our lives have become increasingly more convenient. Yes, this book is a little bit based towards the American audience, so they talk about like the sizes of houses in America or the amount of goods that you can buy for your salary, and the happiness did not follow. So there is no correlation between the salary increase in this case and the amount of happiness, because, and a quote again, compared to generations prior, control over your time has diminished. And since controlling your time is such a key happiness influencer, we shouldn't be surprised that people don't feel much happier, even though we are on average richer than ever. And that is because it's so much easier now to work from home, to be constantly available to your partners, your managers, to random people who just call you up and ask you for like money, or give you ads, or ask you if you want to change to their mortgage loan, or I don't know, whatever. We are constantly available, and that makes us much less in control of our time, which makes us less happier. And that is a sad thing to understand about the world we live in. Another great learning from this book, which I think is really relevant for the tech circles and working in tech areas, that's been like a common, change and growth, is that intelligence and your technical skills don't matter as much. I mean, they still do, but not as much when you're getting hired as your soft skills, especially in the companies that I at least worked in, like King or Spotify. Your soft skills, your communication skills, your flexibility matters much more than your technical skills, because technical skills are easier to learn and there are more people with those technical skills available, whereas soft skills are much less common to be taught in universities and in schools, and depend much more on your personality. Intelligence is not a reliable advantage in a world that becomes as connected as ours has, but flexibility is. In a world where intelligence is hyper-competitive and many previous technical skills have become automated, competitive advantages tilts towards nuanced and soft skills like communication, empathy, and perhaps most of all, flexibility. The ability to do those things when most others can't is one of the few things that will set you apart in a world where intelligence is no longer a sustainable advantage having. Super true. Empathy, soft skills, communication, planning, accountability are really important and could be more important than your knowledge of programming or your knowledge in statistics. More important skills are the ability to explain yourself clearly, the ability to talk to different types of people so that they understand you and that they feel respected and heard, the ability to present your findings in a very good visual way, the ability to be flexible in your understanding of the world, pretty much as Morgan Housel says, the ability to be flexible in your job and while talking to other people, while learning new things. You will have to learn different tools, different techniques, different methods, different analytical concepts regardless. So if you just come from a university with a super solid technical background and super solid statistical background, this is amazing, this is great, but there is a higher chance sometimes that someone with a less technical background and less statistical knowledge, but better way of communicating with people, presenting their findings, better like flexibility in general vibe, and maybe adhering to the company's values more, will be hired compared to you. So yes, technical knowledge is not the most important thing. It's great if you have it, and it's definitely really valuable, and for some companies they have to compromise and hire people who have fantastic technical knowledge just because they don't have anyone to cover this area, rather than someone who can learn but is still sort of better in communication. Flexibility in learning new things, being able to move countries or work from home, being able to change a little bit the direction that you're working in, maybe not being a software developer but becoming a data analyst or vice versa. Those are probably, in my feeling and my experience, are the skills that are going to become the most valuable in the new competitive landscape of globalized work from home or work from anywhere agenda. So really recommend this book as well, Psychology of Money. Maybe you will find it a little bit repetitive and you already know some concepts, but still I think it's really good to remind yourself of that and understand better the world we live in and why people make decisions about money that they do. There were some other things that I learned this month. I learned a lot about how to buy an apartment because my partner and I bought an apartment, and like a lot about bank loans, a lot about planning for future. We started doing our personal family Kanban with the tasks that we need to do for the family and the things that we need to plan for the next weeks or months. We started doing family retros and family stand-ups, which I think are really fun, and I feel like a really good way to make sure your relationships are going in the right direction. So I'm not going to talk about this right now, but let me know if you're interested in how to plan your relationship and home life. Yeah, this month was really, really intense. I'm not surprised that I've read somewhat so little compared to the previous months for me. A lot of changes happened, a lot of grown-up decisions were made, and I'm pretty happy about that. So yeah, I hope the next month is a bit more chill. I can rest over summer a bit more in July and read more random, not so useful, just fairly interesting things. Hope this was interesting. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.